You're traveling through another dimension, a dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. A journey into a wondrous land of imagination. Next stop, the Hole of the Rabbit.
Dear Sir, I wish to acquaint you with some of the occurrences of the present, past and future. In or about the spring of 1870, the ground was very soft. A hawker named Mr. Gould got his wagon bogged between Greta and my mother's house on the 11-mile creek. The ground was that rotten it would bog a duck in places, so Mr. Gould had to abandon his wagon for fear of losing his horses in the spewy ground. He was stopping at my mother's awaiting finer or drier weather. Mr. McCormick and his wife, hawkers also, were camped in Greta, and the mosquitoes were very bad, which they generally are, in a wet spring, and to help them Mr. Johns had a horse called Ruita Cruta. Although a gelding was as clever as Old Wombat or any other stallion at running horses away and taking them on his beat, which was from Greta Swamp to the 7-mile creek, consequently he enticed McCormick's horse away from Greta. Mr. Gould was up early finding his horses, heard a bell and seen McCormick's horse, for he knew the horse well. He sent his boy to take him back to Greta. When McCormick's got the horse, they came straight out to Gould and accused him of working the horse. This was false, and Gould was amazed at the idea. I could not help laughing to hear Mrs. McCormick accusing him of using the horse after him being so kind as to send his boy to take him from the Ruita Cruta and take him back to him. I pleaded Gould's innocence, and Mrs. McCormick turned on me and accused me of bringing the horse from Greta to Gould's wagon to pull him out of the bog. I did not say much to the woman as my mother was present, but that same day me and my uncle was cutting calves. Gould wrapped up a note and a pair of the calves' testicles and gave them to me to give them to Mrs. McCormick. I did not see her, and I gave the parcel to a boy to give to her when she would come. Instead of giving it to her, he gave it to her husband. Consequently, McCormick said he would summons me. I told him neither me or Gould used their horse. He said I was a liar and he could welt me or any of my breed. I was about 14 years of age, but accepted the challenge, and dismounting when Mrs. McCormick struck my horse in the flank with a bullock's shin, it jumped forward and my fist came in collision with McCormick's nose and caused him to lose his equilibrium and fall prostrate. I tied up my horse to finish the battle, but McCormick got up and ran to the police camp. Constable Hall asked me what the row was about. I told him they accused me and Gould of using their horse, and I hit him, and I would do the same to him if he challenged me. McCormick pulled me and swore their lives against me. I was sentenced to 3 months for hitting him and 3 months for the parcel, and bound to keep the peace for 12 months. Mrs. McCormick gave good substantial evidence, as she is well acquainted with that place called Tasmania, better known as the Dervon or Van Diemen's Land. And McCormick, being a policeman over the convicts and women being scarce, released her from that land of bondage and tyranny. And they came to Victoria and are at present residents of Greta, and on the 29th of March I was released from prison and came home. Wild Wright came to the 11-mile to see Mr. Gunn, stopped all night and lost his mare. Both him and me looked all day for her and could not get her. Wright, who was a stranger to me, was in a hurry to get back to Mansfield, and I gave him another mare, and he told me if I found his mare to keep her until he brought mine back. I was going to Wangaratta and seen the mare. I caught her and took her with me. All the police and Detective Beryl seen her as Martin's girls used to ride her about the town during several days that I stopped at Peter Martin's Star Hotel in Wangaratta. She was a chestnut mare, white face, docked tail, very remarkable. Branded as plain as the hands on a town clock. The property of a telegraph master in Mansfield. He lost her on the 6th, gazetted her on the 12th of March, and I was a prisoner in Beechworth jail until the 29th of March. Therefore I could not have stole the mare. I was riding the mare through Greta. Constable Hall came to me and said he wanted me to sign some papers that I did not sign at Beechworth concerning my bail bonds. I thought it was the truth. He said the papers was at the barracks, and I had no idea he wanted to arrest me, or I would have quietly rode away instead of going to the barracks. I was getting off when Hall caught hold of me and thought to throw me, but made a mistake and came on the broad of his back, himself in the dust. The mare galloped away, and instead of me putting my foot on Hall's neck and taking his revolver and putting him in the lockup, I tried to catch the mare. Hall got up and snapped 3 or 4 caps at me and would have shot me, but the Colt's patent refused. This is well known in Greta. Hall never told me he wanted to arrest me until after he tried to shoot me. When I heard the cap snapping, I stood until Hall came close. He had me covered and was shaking with fear, and I knew he would pull the trigger before he would be game to put his hand on me, so I duped and jumped at him, caught the revolver with one hand and Hall by the collar with the other. I dare not strike him, or my sureties would loose the bond money. I used to trip and let him take a mouthful of dust now and again, as he was as helpless as a big guano after leaving a dead horse or bullock. I kept throwing him in the dust until I got him across the street, the very spot where Mrs. O'Brien's hotel stands now. The cellar was just dug then. There was some brush fencing where the post and rail was taking down, and on this I threw big cowardly Hall on his belly. I straddled him and rolled both spurs into his thighs. He roared like a big calf attacked by dogs and shifted several yards of the fence. I got his hands at the back of his neck and tried to make him let the revolver go, but he stuck to it like grim death to a dead volunteer. He called for assistance to a man named Cohan and Barnett Lewis, Thompson Jewell, 2 blacksmiths who was looking on. I dare not strike any of them, as I was bound to keep the peace, or I could have spread those curs like dung in a paddock. They got ropes, tied my hands and feet, and Hall beat me over the head.